Oscar coffee. Hi, how are you? I'm glad to see you. Yeah, I'm glad to see you. Thank you. I was just telling them how your mom rescued me. Drove me home to the state for like a week or whatever that was. Hi, thank you for coming. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming. I'm Z Mobley. I'm the Director of Student Services. We're delighted to have you here this evening. I'd like to introduce the man who needs no introduction around here, Dean John Moblescu. He's the Senior University Dean of CUNY for Academic Affairs, and he is, of course, our founding dean and the man who always helps us get what we need to make everything we do happen. And he's also been instrumental for many years for many mayors of New York to help bring the resources of CUNY and the School of Professional Studies to the assistance of New York City. So please welcome John Moblescu.
Thank you, Katie. It's a great night, and I am so delighted to welcome you all here today. A little bit of thanks to staff who kind of helped put this night together, and particularly Anthony Sweeney, who is standing in the back. I don't think Marissa Job is here with you, but I think you were the two people most instrumental in getting this evening together, and I greatly appreciate it. I see Professor David Good. Now, where okay. So David is a professor at the College of Staten Island, but I don't know how many years ago, he really helped build our first certificate in disability studies. And David, I thank you for that and the work that you have done. Z, I acknowledge all the work that you do as well, and Darian over there, Robinson, who's helping us technically get this night underway. I had an opportunity, I had not met the commissioner before about 15 minutes ago, but you could not help but be struck, and I'm going to let Maria really do a more formal introduction. I was struck by both his energy and sense of advocacy for this area. And already in 2 minutes he put me on the spot, and in a positive way, I would say, and I think that is incredibly important for someone who has a position of his stature here in the city. And then I mentioned this to the commissioner as well. I watched him as he came into this room, and the first thing he did was kind of reach out to people in the audience in a very human way, and that doesn't happen always, and that is to his credit as well. And so I can't wait to hear him talk and enter into conversation with all of you. A lot of you are either former students of ours or present students, and I'm just curious, how many of you are former students of ours who graduated from one of our programs? And by the way, the amazing thing is that the commissioner got his master's in urban studies from the Murphy Institute, part of the School of Professional Studies as well. So for those of you who graduated, I hope you had a great experience with us, and I appreciate you coming back. And how many of you are students now? A whole lot of, which is fabulous.
Wow,
Which is fabulous, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to do what I did not do with the commission, which is shake your hands at graduation, and hopefully, before too long, which is, of course, hopefully one of the main reasons why you're here to get what you do. And then lastly, I want to introduce Maria Bates, who probably needs no introduction to almost everybody in this room, but has helped us build not only our certificate program, but our bachelor's degree program and our master's degree program. And we have become really nationally known in the field of disability studies. And we're a young new school, and to create programs that are pretty unique around the United States is impressive. So, and Marriott, I'm not going to go through her bio. She has such a long, impressive history in working in this field as a fierce advocate as well. So I'm going to thank the commissioner again for coming. Thank all of you guys for spending some time with us and being either former students or students. And those of you not either of those categories, I thank you for being here as well, and ask Mariette to formally introduce the commission.
Hi. Thank you, John. I can, say, I think, with great assurance that our program wouldn't exist without the support of our founding dean, who has been always unwavering in supporting our program. So thank you very much. The Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities functions as a liaison between the disability community and city government. The office works collaboratively with other agencies to assure that the rights and needs of people with disabilities are included in all city initiatives by fostering greater cooperation, communication, and coordination of the functions of services in New York City. Our school has always enjoyed a very close relationship with the Mayor's Office, so it gives me a great pleasure to introduce the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Victor Calise. Commissioner Calise has served the disabled community for almost 20 years now, in his role as Accessibility Coordinator for the Department of Parks and Recreation, where he oversaw accessibility compliance at city parks and in the Parks Department programming throughout the 5 boroughs. He began his work with disabled New Yorkers as the coordinator of the Spinal Cord Injury Do It program at Mount Sinai Medical Center, where he worked with spinal cord injury patients to facilitate the transition between inpatient hospital stay to the outpatient setting in a patient's journey to reintegration successfully into the community. And he also held several positions at United Spinal Association, a nonprofit organization that focuses on disability rights and aims to improve the quality of life for Americans living with spinal cord injuries. He provided recreation opportunities for disabled veterans at the VA hospital system and coordinated national adaptive sports programs for the United Spinal members and organizations such as Multiple Sclerosis Society. These programs included adaptive field days, wheelchair softball, hand cycling, sled hockey programs. During his time there, he established 4 children's teams in New York, New Jersey, and the Connecticut area, and founded the Major League Wheelchair Softball Tournament in conjunction with the New York Mets. As Accessibility Coordinator at the Parks Department, Commissioner Calise focused on ensuring that city parks, programs, and services provided by the department are available to New Yorkers of all abilities in compliance with Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. He provided technical assistance in the design of parks and developed a training curriculum to familiarize parks employees with accessibility issues. He established an accessibility advisory committee within the Parks Department. The committee provided community input on the development and evaluation of new facilities, programs, and services. He also implemented a transition plan that identified and provided remediation for current barriers to accessibility throughout all of the New York City parks and facilities. An avid athlete, Commissioner Calise was a member of the USA Paralympic sled hockey team and represented the USA at the 1998 Winter Paralympic Games in Nagano, Japan. He volunteers for the Wheelchair Sports Federation. He's frequently a guest speaker on the topic of spinal cord injuries, physical therapy, and adaptive sports. He earned his bachelor's from St. John's, and as John mentioned, his master's degree from Queens College and the Murphy Institute. He lives on the Upper West Side with his wife and 2 daughters. So I'm going to turn this over to you, and thank you very much for coming. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm on. All right, I'm on. Well, she got the long bio.
I did. I got it.
I hate that bio. I almost wanted to go to sleep. And the interesting thing about it is we recently had an event with the mayor, and the mayor turned around and he said, and Victor has 20 years experience. And I'm like, 2 decades of experience for people with disabilities. I said, 2 decades, is he talking about me? So it's amazing how time goes. But thank you for having me, CUNY, John, Mariette, Lisa. I appreciate it. Z, thank you for having me here today. This is a bigger turnout and a better turnout than our Google Hangout. Google Hangout. It was just me and Mariette hanging out. So no one else joined. It was my first one. I was all excited. No, not one. But anyway, I'm glad you're all here. So thank you. each and every one of you. I work every day to serve you. That's my job, is to make sure that we can make New York City the most accessible city in the world, and accessible in lots of different ways, not just in the physical landscape, but access to services, access to healthcare, access to transportation, because those are really important for people with disabilities. And what does our office do? What do we sit around and do all day? And I often go to sleep asking myself that, because that's what I always ask about what the last commissioner did. What does MOPD do? And every night before I go to sleep, I think about that. And I wake up and I find some new energy to push forward on what we have to do. So let me tell you little things about what we're working on. The Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities were a big part of getting the cabs to be 50% accessible by 2020. I know that a lot of advocates pushed. There was a lawsuit that helped push it a little bit further, but we were there every step of the way, working with every city agency, working with the Mayor's Office, and the de Blasio administration saw this as a key moment and for the civil rights of people with disabilities, and really took it and made it happen. So by 2020, 50% of yellow cabs will be accessible. By 2024, 50% of the green cabs will be accessible. So that's a big accomplishment. And people often ask, well, what about London? London has 100% accessibility, and they do, but their codes and standards are not held to the Americans with Disability as Act codes and standards. I have a pretty small chair, and it's very tight for me to fit inside a London cab. When you're going to get into a New York City cab, they're going to be ADA compliant, enough room, can fit power wheelchairs and all that. So that's really important as we move forward and think about accessibility on the transportation field. Another thing by 2020 is 100 key stations will be accessible by 2020. So it seems like a big year for us in 2020. It stinks we have to wait so long, but accessibility is something. The ADA and people with disabilities rights always has a dollar amount to it. Right? It's not just about changing programs and services. It's about there's a dollar amount attached to it. And unfortunately, that dollar amount takes a little bit longer than we would like to see things change. So, we're getting there. That's one that TLC has been really great in this process, and we're excited about that. Other things that we're doing. Well, Mayor de Blasio had a pretty aggressive plan on housing, and we wanted to make sure that accessible, affordable housing was in that picture too. And what does that really mean? So we work with Housing Preservation and Development to really make sure that Housing Connect, it's a portal that a person with a disability can go and sign up on. And in the past, all the applications just went into one pile. And if you happen to be a person with a disability, it would pick that out if they happen to come upon it. Now, what Housing Connect does, it actually takes the person with a disability, puts them in the 7% preference that is Housing Preservation Development has. So it gives a person with a disability an equal share to that 7% accessible apartments. And that's 5% for mobility and 2% for visual and hearing. And generally, people with disabilities aren't signing up for this housing, and that's a shame. And there's a lot of reasons why. They don't know about it. So HPD has promised to make a bigger push along with our office and to get the word out, let people know that this housing exists for people with disabilities. And number two is there's subsidies available for people with disabilities too. And we'll get to some questions later.
Is that just in public housing or? Well,
that's in everything that Housing Preservation, that's like the 80-20 apartments that are coming out. Okay. So it's within those. So there's subsidies available. So we're trying to identify those subsidies for people with disabilities, because a subsidy could mean that a person on Social Security might be able to supplement get that subsidy and be able to actually bring them into Housing Preservation Development housing. So we're trying to identify what those subsidies are. And when we do identify them, we want to make sure that developers understand that these subsidies are available and that you can use them for a person with a disability, because those are really important. So we're working with HPD on that, making sure a 504 coordinator is on staff to be able to help get the information out for people with disabilities. So we're doing a lot on that as well. The mayor has an aggressive policy on Vision Zero. He wants to stop the deaths that are happening. And there are a lot of things that happen for people with disabilities, crossing the street, making sure curb cuts are more accessible, making sure the temporal warnings are there for people with visual disabilities, making sure audio pedestrian signals are out there for people with visual disabilities, and really trying to understand what the disabled community wants. So we're really involved in everything that the Department of Transportation is doing, making sure the curb cuts are correct and all that. So if there is something that you see on the street that you can't cross, call 311. You know, get the 311 app, take a picture, send it in, because we need to know about these things. Those things are really important for us to know. If we don't know what's out there, we can't fix it. What other things are we doing? I was, thinking, how do we really work on employment, right? That's it, everyone's here. And we're sitting in front of us, and you're in school right now, and you want a path to employment. So how do we get that path to employment? One way that we have tackled that every year for the last 10 years is something called Disability Mentoring Day. It's a one-day job shadowing experience. So you come into our workspace, we assess you, and we get you job ready. We'll teach you how to write a resume, how to interview for an interview, how to dress for an interview, how to network. So we have lots of different classes and we get you job ready. You tell us a field that you're interested in being involved in, and then we try to match you up to that field that you're involved. And you go in for a one-day job shadowing experience with someone in the field of your choice, if we can match you correctly. And then you have an ability to meet and see what it's like to work with a person in your field that's in your field for one day. And we expect and hope that you maintain and build a relationship with your mentor, because this will really help you as you move forward. And we coach the mentors to really think about building a relationship with you, the mentee. So we've been doing that for the past 10 years. And we as people with disabilities need to be more involved in city government. We need to apply for city government jobs. They're out there. Now, just to let you know, the city has a program called 55A. And the 55A program allows a person with a disability, if they're working in an agency, to get their civil service title without taking a test. But you have to work for the city, you have to be in there, and you have to take that 55, and you have to apply for the 55A. There's a process that you have to go through, but you need to be in city government. You can get your civil service title in the field that you're in. That's important, but you need to start applying for city jobs and do that. You can go to where people are recruiting for city jobs. And on the other side, the city needs to come out and start looking for people with disabilities. So we're working and thinking of the ways that we can do that as well. Another thing that we're working hard to do is when I was working with the Parks Department, I was their ADA coordinator there. And I was the first ADA coordinator at the Parks Department. Julie, you remember back in those days, I had a lot of black hair then. And he would come to meetings and we'd talk about what we can do to make parks more accessible for people with disabilities. And through those meetings, I learned a lot how to engage the disabled community and work with them and find out what their needs and wants are and really bring them back to the agency and say, this is what the disabled community wants. It's not what you think they want. It's here's what they really want. And really go above and beyond ADA codes and standards. So that ADA coordinator position really made me think, well, we should have that in agencies across the city. So we've been working with city agencies to make that happen. Recently, the Department of Transportation hired an ADA coordinator. And now we have a person that's working. It started only about 6 months ago. And now this person is in this position to be able to really say, this is what you're supposed to be doing for people with disabilities. HRA, Human Resource Administration has just posted for a ADA coordinator job to really be able to do that. And we're looking at other agencies that we feel that's going to be appropriate, and we're going to be advocating for the hiring of ADA coordinators. So after your master's degrees there, it's up to Marriott, because we've been talking. It's good to let her know your resume's there so we know you're alive. These may be a position for you. Or maybe not, or maybe you don't want to be involved in ADA issues, that's fine. And you want to be involved in the regular workforce, then start applying for jobs within the city. You go to nyc.gov/DCAS, which is DCAS, and look for the job postings there and apply. And you can apply right online. And they have to make all the accommodations that if you need something to do that. So that's important, really being able to tie that in. Other ways, because what that does, when you go back, is if I have ADA coordinators in every agency, that really helps me with the things that I need to do to say, here's our mission, here's what we're doing to look forward. So I'm building a network of people and coordinators that understand disabled issues inside the city government. Now, how do we make this available outside city government. It's important, right? Outside city government is everything that we should be involved in, because we need to be part of our communities, right? And the only way to be part of our communities is to join our community board. And I've worked with borough presidents, so I'm going to be talking with them again, to include a person with a disability on their community board process. You involved in your community board process does a lot, right? It gets you A, into your community, it builds B, it builds acceptance and tolerance, and C, you're able to see what's happening. And when you're able to see what's happening, you get to stand up for your rights and say, you know what, this needs to be accessible, or this needs that, or my community needs this, because there's projects that come to you, there's community boards, and you can have an input. And what that does, that gives me, my office, an opportunity of building a network outside city government, right? So now I'm building inside and outside, and then we can communicate to find out what the needs and wants are. Same thing that Julia and I have done in the past to figure out, you know, I want my local playground accessible, or I want to be able to go to my drinking fountain and get it accessible. That model is something that, you know, I've been thinking about and pushing for some time, and it's important. We know Health and Hospital Corporations is doing a lot on accessibility into their facilities, especially in women's issues like mammogram machines. So we're looking at that, exam tables to make sure they're accessible for women. So there's lots of different things that Health and Hospital Corporation is doing it, and a lot of advocates have driven that. And it's been independent care systems. ICS has been involved in working with HHC to be able to push that issue along. And recreation programs, we've been working a lot with Extreme Kids and Crew, a great program. And they're really involved with the Parks Department in doing such stuff. IWD, we've been doing a lot with, and getting them involved with Road New York, who happens to be on a park system. So we're doing a lot with that. So it's important that we get the disabled community involved in lots of different things, and we're working on lots of issues every day, and trying to figure out you know, how we can make our constituents work closer with us, and how we're going to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ADA. 25 years that are coming up, and we're planning something big in the next for the month of July next year. So more things will be coming out. It's leading up to the 26th anniversary of the ADA, and we really need to celebrate that, and really having our office involved, you as constituents, CUNY as a lead on this as well. We've been talking with Chris Rose on a lot of issues about this, and there's more plans that are coming to celebrate. So I think, should we open it up for questions? Sure. Or is everyone tired of hearing me talk?
Dialogue is good.
Ask away, please.
You know, they're not shy in class.
I have a question. I work for city government, and so I actually saw the ATA coordinator position. There was one not that long ago. But all the vacancies that I've seen, they mostly ask for MA in urban studies or in public administration, but I haven't seen one that asks for an MA in disability studies. So is there any effort that's to promote this in city government?
You know, that is a really good point. And next time that I see an ADA coordinator position come up, I'll make sure that the MA in disability studies is added. I generally see the job descriptions come through, the last few that I have, and I have some input into that, so I'll make sure that's it. I mean, you know, sometimes it's just that blatant, right? And, okay, easy enough. At least I hope it's easy. It should be, as long as I see it. Yes.
Hi, my name is Nuriya Nubra, and my question is about, you mentioned about transportation for people with disabilities.
Yes.
And
Speaking to the microphone,
Sorry.
so everyone can hear.
okay. When you mentioned about the transportation for people with disabilities and the yellow cab and other, I was wondering, do you have any information to give it to us about the accessorite? How much is transportation approved now? Because a lot of people with disability are struggling very badly with the accessory schedules and how to pick up the consumer and drop, and also I was wondering if you have any information. Thank you.
I'll tell you what I know. I know that Accessoride handles 25,000 trips a day. Yes, that's how many they handle a day. So if you think about that, that's pretty big. Their system is stressed. And they're working really hard to really implement better ways that they can communicate and actually get people's transportation on time. They do have a committee that's in place. It's called PAC, which is Paratransit Advisory Committee. And what we get from that meeting is 94% of the trips are on time. That we are hearing. I know I just saw some eyebrows raised. That's the data that they have, and they're always looking at different ways to improve. They just have a new dispatcher system on time, and they're working through some of the bugs to see what they can get. And it's promising that it's going to be better. Their technology is getting better too. They know it's an issue. They do get the complaints, and they're trying to improve service all the time. It's a tough issue. What they're trying to do right now, and what they have done, is they have given people free Metro cards. So you can use the Metro card instead of Accessoride. So that'll give you an opportunity and hope wean you off public transportation in some way. Accessoride in some way. I know that's not a good enough answer, and I go to the PAC meetings, and I push for accessibility. I work directly with Accessoride, and I convey your message, and over time, I believe it's going to get better. There is a movement to try to use the accessible cabs as Accessoride areas. That's still in debate, and people are trying to make that happen. I'm hoping to see better times in there, and that's about the best answer I can give you.
One thing I was wondering if there is a possibility if they can change the rule that they have for, how to pick up the customer, whatever, because they say for example, if I'm on the street, if I be 1 minute late, they're not gonna wait for me. They're gonna leave right this minute. But we as a blind or as a disabled individuals, we have to wait for 40 minutes until they arrive. Mm-hmm. And this is really for people who, for example, if somebody's in a wheelchair in the winter, 40 minutes waiting for the accessoride outside the street is very impossible, because we're gonna receive it's not healthy for a person to wait there for 40 minutes. There is any possibility for them to make accommodation and that this be reasonable?
I know they have some accommodation if a bus doesn't come in a certain amount of window time. I'm not sure what that is that you can get some alternate transportation that they might be able to provide.
It's ambulatory. You can get car service.
Right. But I think they're instituting now because there's some abundance of wheelchair accessible cabs. There's some more options. So I would look to exercise that option. They don't come. Yeah, you're fortunate.
We have another question.
Yes.
Hi. So are you working with the PASS Coalition at all for pedestrians for accessible signals and their project to get more audible pedestrian signals? And do you know anything about that?
Is that Wally?
Yes, I'm on your right.
Hello, Wally. How are you? I know Wally well. Wally interned for me way back. Remember Wally?
Yes, sir.
We worked a lot on bathroom stuff, right?
Yep.
I know your voice. Good to see you, Wally. Yes, and Wally, I'm surprised. It's pedestrian for accessible, safe streets. You should know that. Yes, we're working with PASS, with Karen Gorgie, and very closely. And we've done lots of interesting things with PASS. And they're quick to give us feedback if they know an audio pedestrian signal that's down. They give us that information, and we immediately get our DOT staff to go out there and assess it. So we do that really well. They've actually came and blindfolded some DOT staff members to let them know how it was to cross the 23rd Street corridor, which was quite interesting. So yes, we're working with PASS, looking at different ways to do more things. And the DOT commissioner is very committed, Polly Trottenberg, to disability issues. And she has even met with PASS and will continue to meet with PASS on those APSs.
I'm sorry, but I have another accessory question.
Yes.
I was wondering if any thought could be given to establishing some sort of formal arrival and departure area for the buses when they come to, public buildings, particularly CUNY and HHC. These places tend to be rather large places. A person could be anywhere there. But when the cab, stops to pick up someone or to let someone off, it's what really is ever available. And there's no way to sort of secure for the cab, some space that is for them when they're going to CUNY or HHC.
And you mean cab meaning accessory vehicle?
Yeah.
Yes. There are, I know that Accessoride does a pretty good job of identifying areas, drop off and pick up areas in a lot of different places, and drivers should know about that. I will bring it up to Accessoride and mention it to them, specifically with CUNY and HHC facilities.
I wanted to know if there's anybody involved from the mayor's office of people with disabilities on the 2nd Avenue subway project to make sure that they are complying with ADA codes, and if we're talking about the buses and the cabs and the subway elevators and the whole thing with the subways, what's being done to ratify those problems?
Well, it's the whole MTA issue. It's not a city issue; it's a state issue. And a lot of people get that confused and say it's the city's, but it is in the city. And we work with MTA on lots of different issues. Have we been directly involved with the 2nd Avenue subway? No. All subways or any new construction has to comply with ADA. I know. And the MTA generally does a good job on accessibility when they're building new. And there are elevators at every stop. And the gap should be a lot less than they are in any other subways, especially on the 2nd Avenue side, because it's new construction. I'll again, I work with, with Carmen Bianco, and I'll mention it to him and bring it up to him.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have you oversee or have somebody from your office oversee that you can make sure, what they say they're doing.
We do work with DOT, we do work with MTA.
But,
And and Matthew Cavolo in our office, the transportation expert, closely works with MTA. And I will talk and I'll ask to see the plans and maybe get a look at them stuff. And maybe I'll invite you to the office so you can take a look. I mean, have you been involved in the community process?
no, well, I see it.
It's a lot easier to point the finger at something than it is to fix it.
Yes, but
I'm just kidding with you, but
okay.
but it is again, and then that's a good example, everybody, because it's really important. If we're involved, again, if we're involved in our community boards and if we're involved in this process from the beginning, we have a say. When it's built, we can't do much of anything, right? And that's one of the most frustrating parts, right?
Yeah.
Like you see something going up in front of your in your neighborhood, and you think it's accessible, right? And then it goes and then it's not, and then how frustrating that is, right? And I from what I understand, there was a restaurant on the corner of your house that went from accessible to inaccessible. And, but you need to file a complaint. And we need to know about these things, and you need to write out these complaints and do it. And you need to do that on 2 avenues, with the Department of Buildings and with Human Rights. But I agree with you. We know that there are elevators, that they are following ADA on that. And Carmen Bianco really takes this thing seriously for accessibility. So have I seen the plans now? I have.
A couple things. I work for an agency, Independent Residents Incorporated in Woodhaven, and as self-advocacy advisor liaison, and a couple of the residents that I work with meetings with, like, I'm an autistic adult too, and it's a pilot program they're working on, and I help them advocate for themselves. But a couple situations, and they brought up to me with accessibility with the buses on Woodhaven Boulevard and the sidewalks, and I told them, why don't you write a letter to the mayor, the city, and the MTA, and but I don't know if they never did it because they weren't sure what to say.
Yeah.
But they've always had problems with the buses and stuff, and like accessibility, because getting on the bus, getting off the bus, and sidewalks.
Yeah, sidewalks, if there are problems, to be able to call 311, to be able to make that complaint, or you can call our office directly. By calling 311 and getting someone in our side to be able to talk about that.
Right.
That's one example. Definitely the MTA. I mean, if there are disability issues, writing a letter to our office, we make sure that we route those letters once we get them to the appropriate people that need to get routed to. So if a letter comes through our office, they will most likely get a response.
Because I also noticed that the crosswalks crossing Woodhaven Boulevard from Jamaica Avenue is very fast.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, DOT, I saw a plan, especially in Woodhaven. I grew up not too far from there. I grew up in Ozone Park, so I know Cross Bay and Woodhaven Boulevard rather well.
Yeah.
DOT is really doing a lot of new things on the Woodhaven corridor, and I'm pretty sure they're going to doing. I'm not sure if they're doing some stuff on leading pedestrian intervals, which will slow down the lights and make it easier to cross. But I know they're doing a lot of work on the Woodhaven corridor that are going to address some issues.
Hi, my name is Maureen, and this is my service hub right next to me. I just wanted to really quick talk about accessory. A lot of times, even if it's on my profile, they a lot of times give me trouble with bringing the dog, and they're like very rude, and it's like really stressful. So if you ever need someone to provide an in-service or help to improve that, I would be willing to help.
Now that's the advocacy that I would love to hear. I know there are some issues, we hear them. The drivers are trained to make sure that you're
not
all right. No, what they're trained to do, it's in their what they're trained to do and what they do are maybe two different things. But we will take you up on your service commitment and coming in and doing some type of in-service.
Because yesterday they threatened to not take the dog and
So we have a flyer. Our office has a flyer that we made up. And it talks about, that you have to use a service animal. It's downloadable on our website. You can take it and print it and show them to you every time. And it'll explain your rights exactly.
Because a lot of times they put drink down as a guest. And it's not. They're still like, is your dog going to be in the carrier? I'm like, no, this is what he gets made in the carrier.
I was wondering, how do you feel about the formation, the direction of managed care, and the formation of DISCOs?
Formation of what?
DISCOs.
You may not know about them.
No, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
What with managed care as far as how now service providers are going to be affected?
Yeah, I haven't, that's more Department of Health has been working on those issues. We haven't wrapped our head around those issues as of yet. But I'm sure, yeah, we just hired a new general counsel, who's gonna be, just started about 2 weeks ago. And she's, gonna be working on some of those managed care issues. Because we're concerned about them. Thank you.
How you doing, Commissioner? I have a question. There's a family, a child has autism and, for lack of a better word, has what they're describing as, some significant behavioral issues. They are on their way out of their house apparently. They say they're going to be evicted in short time, but it's not an immediate and pressing issue, which causes a lot of problems for families like this. I've tapped like all my contacts at OPWDD within my own agency and other agencies, and apparently there's really no way, unless the situation is immediate, there's almost no help for folks like this. It never occurred to me to actually go to the city. Is the city equipped to handle stuff like this?
I would contact the Commissioner on Human Rights.
The city or state?
You can go city or state. You can make a complaint either or, and they're pretty aggressive on these issues. That sounds like a human rights issue that you definitely need to follow up on. That's going to be your best course of action.
Hi, I work for AHRC, also Disability Studies graduate. Mayor's office came to AHRC and they presented on Vision Zero and to a group of self-advocates, and they've been doing, one thing that you hadn't mentioned is the survey for Vision Zero. It's actually, there's an online survey that you can fill out, and we've been disseminating that to self-advocates. It's very, but one concern I have about the survey is the wording. Some of it's I don't understand it at all. Like it's very vague. Some of it, but the rest of it is very, very good and is a useful tool. I just think some of the wording could be changed.
I'll get you in contact with the ADA coordinator and we can have that conversation.
That would be great. Thank you.
Got some in the back and up here. I saw that arm go up.
Yeah. Spoke earlier, you mentioned about the low income houses for individuals with disability. The agency that I work for, we provide case management services to a lot of those individuals, and it's extremely hard finding housing for them. So can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, well, what I was specifically talking about was the 70%, which for 5% for mobility and 2% for hearing and visual. So what happens is when they build new housing preservation development with federal dollars, they have to have this 7% preference. It's not a set aside. A set aside means it'll always be there. Preference will be there until it's filled. So the idea is that we need to fill those apartments. We're not on that 7% side. There are a lot of supportive housing stuff going on. I'm not as well versed in that, but it is for it is an option as well. And there are people at HPD that are handling it. So if you have any further questions, we can talk offline and get your contact information. I'll have my housing expert contact you if that helps.
Hi, sort of building a little bit off of what Maureen was saying about doing an in-service, I was wondering what kind of opportunities, specifically employment, internship, that kind of thing, opportunities are there for young people with disabilities, such as myself, who may be pursuing our master's degrees or maybe just out of college, who a lot of us have a lot of experience with working with disability organizations and working in activism, not to mention our lifelong experiences as people with disabilities. But I feel employment for us specifically is very limited, and I just wanted to know what opportunities are there for us.
Well, if you're interested in interning, best thing to do is get your resume over to our office, and then please tell us what field you're interested in, and as internships come up, we'll see if we can direct you to those agencies. and at least get it over to the human rights as far as that. And also you need to apply for city jobs. They aren't gonna come to you. You gotta go to them. We want you, it'd be great if they came to us, right? But every job I've ever had, I've done through networking. Building off another person that I may know, and again, just seeing an opportunity and going for it. And you have to identify that, but that comes with a lot of experience over time. And this is a good way today that they're networking with me, to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm interested in an internship. IWD may be interested. CUNY maybe. I don't know what field you're interested in. So. And you'd have to let me know what that is. And then put your cover letter together, get it over to us. Be happy to take a look.
Absolutely.
Hi, my question is also about employment. So I work also at AHRC, and we have this issue where people we support, they have a lot of skills, they've been through resumes and training, but if people aren't hiring. And I want to know if there's some kind of program for employers and HR people where they can learn about what the ADA means for their companies, how they can what accommodations are available if they want to hire somebody with a disability, so that they're not just, when they're presented with somebody with a disability, they don't know what to do with them. They don't know what's available, so then they don't hire.
Yeah, it's, believe it or not, that sounds like discrimination, doesn't it? It's an issue, it's something that it's going to be ongoing. One place that we work with, and we do a lot of work with in this field, is Access VR. So is anyone familiar with Access VR? We work with Arnold Doria, and I came from Access VR. I received all the services that I needed to. They helped pay for books. They helped me with employment. They put gas in my car to get me back from point A to point B. And we're doing more stuff with Access VR now. So it's really important to get involved in that. I did see some eyes rolling about Access VR. It's working the system to be able to do it, but we are doing some work with them on that end. And people aren't allowed to discriminate in the workforce. And if you feel that you are, again, that's a human rights issue, and either you contact the state or the city, and they're pretty aggressive in moving forward in that. We're trying to do. It's really good to know that the state has a 55B program for people with disabilities. So I've looked into the 55B program. The 55A program, you have to be already working. 55B is the state, and that's a civil service title, I believe, in that respect. And then 55A is if you're working inside the city, you can get your civil service title. So you have to work there first. You have a question? Sorry, over here.
Yeah, there's a couple more.
Sorry. Yes?
Hi, my name is Emily Liddell. I'm a writer, and a lot of what I focus on regards various accessibility issues that have popped up in my day-to-day experiences and things like that. So I recently wrote a 2-part series on navigating the city, and one was on accessible attractions, and then one was on dealing with the subway, especially for tourists who are unfamiliar. And so my question to you is, I know you mentioned something about the 2nd Avenue subway development, but did I mishear, or are there also adaptations being made to fix gaps and add more elevators and things like that to other locations across the city?
There was actually, if you look at AM New York had an article yesterday about about disability and getting around.
Was that about the wheelie app or something?
Yeah, that had something to do with it. But as the MTA is making improvements and more funding comes in, they're able to, if they can identify wheelchair accessible stations to make it accessible. Besides the 100 key stations, they're trying to do that. I'm not sure exactly what's happening on fixing the gap. I can't speak to that. I don't necessarily know what's there, but a lot of people are having an issue with it. Again, it's good to be an advocate. It's good to have a group to be able to do that, to be involved in that. So I think that's important, to be involved in that process as well. And how do you do that? Well, have you been involved with other organizations around the city? Are you involved with other organizations like Disabled in Action? And I would be really happy to see what you've written. So if you can get that to me, that'd be great. and I can certainly pass that on. Does that work?
Hi, my name is Christy. Just want to ask, I've participated in many of the things that you've mentioned, and I've applied for more jobs than I can count on NYC.gov, and I've taken countless civil service exams with accommodations I've passed, but I've been told that there's a hiring freeze, and then I was told that they're not hiring at all. There's just nothing open right now. So is there a freeze? Has the freeze been lifted?
I've heard, I mean, I don't, on that avenue, I know that there's job postings that are on existing sites now. I mean, I saw some job postings by the Department of Design and Construction that have been posting some jobs. I mean, it's all about going to their website and seeing what they have. Go to an agency that you're interested in, see. I know I could say right now, if you go to the Parks Department, you go to opportunities, and you know, they may or may not be a posting, but it may not be a field that they're interested in or have the experience. So I mean, you really go back and keep checking on those websites and going. Finding a job is tough. It really is.
You need a job to find a job.
You need a job to find a job, right? And finding a job is your job, right? You're not getting paid for that job.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough, and you know, and I remember what it was like, and being involved, you know, just showing people what you have, and continue to build that resume, volunteering, internship where you can. You know, it might be an unpaid. I'll be able to look at that as well. I wish I had an answer to you're hired. I just don't. And I'm trying to give you my best answer.
Hi, Commissioner. I don't know if you remember me. I'm the mother of Nika.
Yes.
Yeah, how you doing?
How are you?
Good. So I'm interested in this Housing Connect program that you were talking about with the 7%. So can you give some more information about the website or how to apply or anything?
I would Google Housing Connect.
Housing Connect.
And then what happens, it's you apply. And there's a certain amount, so Housing Preservation Development has a list of accessible apartments that are available. And if they're brand new apartments, they're going to be accessible. If they're renovations, they might be accessible, but the people may have moved out and are going to come back in, so they might not be at the 7%. So the best thing to do is go to the website, Housing Connect, log in, fill out an application, and then that application, the great thing about Housing Connect is once you fill it out, you can apply just because your application is saved, you can apply for a click each time. You don't have to go through the whole application each time because it's saved, and you can apply for as many apartments as you want. It's an income-based, yes. There are income requirements for that, yes.
Are there any programs that are not?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. But developers are supposed to, in their what is it? Related just got sued because they didn't follow ADA and they had to go back and make an accommodation. Developers have to comply with ADA. I mean, there's no if and buts about it. It's a matter of just getting in there and letting you know what your needs and wants are. But the HPD housing and Housing Connect are income-based. Now, if you're looking to apply for your daughter and you set up a trust for her, that counts as a subsidy. You do have a trust for her. So that trust, right? And a lot of people, and I'm assuming you want her to live on her own, right? Or with assistance. Okay. So what you can do, if you set up a trust and she applies for the apartment, she can meet and she gets a SSI or SSD, right? And that trust can act as a subsidy and bring her up to the income level that she needs to be in. No, if she's applying for the apartment, my understanding, if she is applying for the apartment, that's her SSD, and then she has a trust set up, they can draw from that trust. And that'll be a subsidy.
Is there someone you can recommend to get more information?
I can have you speak to our housing expert, Enot, and she can give you all the details on that. I wish I was an expert in all of it, but I have people in my office that at the very least can direct you in the right direction.
One last question.
I just have one question on because I go to a lot of day health centers for the agency to run the meetings, and one of the day health centers in the Bronx at this church is not accessible at all. And I've been trying, and for the people that go there, and it's like on 2 floors, and they don't even have a sign that says the church won't even let us have the sign that says IRI, Day Health Center and stuff. It's very inaccessible for a lot of the people, a lot of self-advocates that go there.
Yeah, again, that's something that you'd have to reach out to the Commissioner on Human Rights to be able to talk to that, and that's important to be able to to reach out to them. Again, it's calling 311, talking to Human Rights, and filing a complaint. But you have to follow through on the complaint.
Yeah.
One more?
I have one last question. 2 parts. One, I want to thank the people who represented the interests of people with developmental disabilities here, asking questions for them, I guess. And so the question is, do you meet directly with people like SANIS, self-advocates who have developmental disabilities?
We meet with lots of different people. I know we do a lot of work with AHRC, that we do with some housing stuff, and not an awful lot of developmental disabilities, but we have, I don't know the list of them off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure if I looked, I can tell you. But we do meet with them, and we try to figure out what their concerns and wants are.
Just the part B, I think a lot of the issues that have been talked about here have to do partially with attitudes towards persons with disabilities. And my mentor, Ed Roberts, was very fond of saying that the biggest obstacle that people face are attitudes. And I think, do you work on that issues directly in any way, or does it just kind of come along with the territory?
Yeah, it comes along with the territory. I try to work on it every day. I'll give you a good example. Is when I was with the Parks Department, there was a certain thing about people with disabilities, and people didn't know how to address. And as I went on, I slowly but surely started to change the culture. But if we're not involved, if we aren't in people's wheelhouse or frame, or in their lives, like in our community boards, in government space, and letting us know that we're there, it's a hard change. And look at the civil rights movement in the 60s, we're just starting to get there, right? Now, disability has only been around for 25 years, right? That our civil rights. We got a long way to go, right? We've made a lot of accomplishments, but it's going to take a while to break down those barriers, and we have to do it collectively, and how do we do that, right? The way I see it is, getting your education, right? Becoming employed, being taxpayers, right? Because we all want to be that. And it sounds easy, right? But we need to do it, and we need to pick each other up and support all the issues that are out there. And, when we talk about advocates, I know advocates that are, there are 800,000 people with disabilities in New York City. That's 10% of the population, right? I could probably count on my hand about 12 advocates that are really out there every day. It's a problem. That's a problem. We're only going to do it if we help make that change. And I'm in the inside trying to make it happen. Sometimes I've been really successful, and sometimes I fall down and I get right back up, and I never say no. But we need other people to be involved as well.
So I want to thank you very much for your. We do have a class on disability law and policy, but one of the real issues about being a disability advocate is having access to people who can actually make change. So it's really important that you came tonight and that you asked the questions that you did, and I really want to thank you, Commissioner Calise, for being part of our community, and I'd really like to work more closely with you and at our disability studies program, because I think that it's really important for us to be able to have some collegiality and community here together with you. So thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for the questions that you asked, because I think it's really, really important that we come out and represent, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I want to see that.
You, sir, are muted. Thank you. Yeah, I know the space. Yeah.
This is very
Stand up, right?
Thank you so much.
No problem.
They are.